Sponsored by Brilliant. During a press conference in February 2023, the White House press secretary took the stage to address something on everyone's mind.
There is no indication of aliens or extraterrestrial activity.
UFOs. The press conference followed a string of encounters between the U.S. military and unexplained aerial phenomena, the new term for UFOs. U.S. fighter jets shot down 3 such objects over Alaska, northern Canada, and the Great Lakes in the previous week alone, prompting the White House to assure the American people that there's no indication of aliens or extraterrestrial activity. And this was only a few months after the U.S. congressional hearings on UFOs. In May 2022, public hearings were held about UFO sightings, featuring testimony from top military officials on hundreds of reported incidents. This caused a huge spike in public interest in UFOs and aliens. Just to give you a sense of how big this surge was, here's a graph for the views on my one and only video about extraterrestrial life and religion. I published this video years ago in 2016. The views had basically plateaued, but that spike right here, that's May 2022. And while some of these aerial phenomena have been explained as optical illusions, foreign spy drones, or airborne trash, for many UFO believers, the hearings vindicated their beliefs that UFOs were real, intelligent extraterrestrial life exists, and the government had kept the evidence secret. Now, definitive proof that extraterrestrial life exists and potentially surpasses us in intelligence and technology would profoundly challenge our perception of humanity's place in the universe. And speculation about us not being alone in the universe has provoked profound questions. What is the nature of these beings? Are they aware of us? And could they, in some sense, be involved in our past or future? But for many people since the 1950s, these ideas have prompted not just scientific or philosophical questions, but religious questions. Perhaps aliens are benevolent, enlightened beings who can teach us how to reach higher spiritual potential, something like a Buddhist bodhisattva, a spiritual being who helps people reach enlightenment. Religious ideas like this led to the formation of groups that scholars call UFO religions. UFO religions are new religious movements that take their primary inspiration from the vast constellation of beliefs surrounding UFO encounters and speculation about the existence of extraterrestrial life. Scholars of religion generally take a broad definition of what counts as a UFO religion. These are movements that may have founders or members claiming to have had direct experience with UFOs, interstellar vessels, extraterrestrial life, visits to other planets, and similar characteristics. And as religions, these movements also incorporate elements that we see in other religions, such as divine revelation, personal enlightenment, mythology, and end times prophecies. But these elements are embedded within the UFO belief complex. So, for example, while in most religions the phrase divine intervention refers to a god intervening on humanity's behalf, in a UFO religion, the divinity would be an advanced alien species. Thus, UFO religions represent an intersection of religion, science fiction, and cultural responses to the advance of science and technology. A classic example of a UFO religion is Raelianism. Now, we'll study this more fully in a separate video, but briefly, Raelianism is a UFO religion founded in the 1970s by a Frenchman named Claude Vorilhon, a former journalist who later took the name Rael. He claimed that he had an in-person encounter with a member of an alien species called the Elohim, who Raelians believe created humanity and have been identified as gods in religions throughout history. Raelianism is one of the most successful UFO religions, with the organization claiming over 100,000 members around the world. Scholars call this a classic UFO religion because an extraterrestrial species is central to its beliefs, practices, and mythology. But there are other examples that are edge cases. For example, the Church of Scientology is sometimes categorized as a UFO religion. The scholar of religion, Hugh Urban, defines Scientology as a complex mixture of self-help therapy, modern esoteric and occult currents, Asian religions such as Hinduism and Buddhism, and elements of the founder L. Ron Hubbard's own active science fiction imagination. And it's that last element that earns it a spot as a UFO religion for some scholars. Even though daily practice doesn't involve UFOs, history and cosmology as it's understood by Scientologists involves extraterrestrial life and an interstellar war, as described in the writings of L. Ron Hubbard. There are many other examples we could mention, and they all deserve their own video, but here are a few examples. First, we have the Etheria Society, a UFO religion founded in London in the 1950s by George King. King was a taxi driver who claimed to have been contacted by an extraterrestrial entity known as Etherius, who designated him as the voice of interplanetary parliament.
Didn't you have a communication with Mars or something like that?
I have had frequent communications with Mars and Venus.
says yes.
This event marked the beginning of King's career as a medium for several extraterrestrial entities that he called cosmic masters.
I am known is Ethereus.
Members of the Aetherius Society believe that religious figures like Jesus and the Buddha are cosmic masters. Another example is the Unarius Academy of Science, an organization founded in 1954 by Ernest Norman and his wife Ruth Norman, a channeler who took the name Uriel. The Unarius Academy teaches a cosmology that blends reincarnation, psychological and spiritual healing, and the existence of advanced alien civilizations. According to Unarian belief, benevolent extraterrestrials called Space Brothers are waiting to help humanity achieve a new age of enlightenment and technological progress. More broadly, some scholars have interpreted UFO beliefs and experiences as a form of religiosity in and of itself. Even if a person doesn't formally affiliate with a UFO religious movement, many people speak of UFO encounters as deeply transformative and meaningful experiences that we can perhaps compare to the born-again experience of an evangelical Christian. In the words of the scholar Michael Ashcraft, UFO experiences share the same emotional and cognitive terrain conventionally called religious. As with all religions, UFO religions emerge out of specific historical and cultural contexts, in this case, the 1950s. For example, two of the earliest UFO religions, the Unarius Academy of Science and the Aetherius Society, were founded in 1954 and 55 respectively. And what was happening during that time? The Cold War. UFO religions were one result of the huge cultural shifts that occurred in the mid-20th century. Anxieties around nuclear energy and weapons, the flourishing of science fiction media, and advances in space travel technology and astronomy all fueled an explosion in new religious movements, all revolving around interstellar travel and intelligent alien life. Interest in UFOs really took off in 1947 when the American pilot Kenneth Arnold said that he saw several disc-shaped objects flying near Mount Rainier in Washington state. This is the origin of the famous flying saucer motif, and it started a revolution. Claims of UFO sightings and even encounters with advanced alien life skyrocketed during the 1950s and 60s, and alongside this increased interest in UFOs came an increased religious interest in UFOs. Some of the people who claim to have UFO experiences spoke about their experiences in religious terms, and religious movements quickly started to emerge. Now, even though UFO religions are generally seen as emerging during the Cold War, they did not appear out of thin air. They draw heavily from earlier ideas as well, especially from Theosophy, a late 19th century religious movement that mixes Western esotericism and occultism with ideas found in Hinduism and Buddhism. For example, consider the concept of Mahatmas, or Masters of Wisdom, which was introduced by, among others, one of the founders of Theosophy, Helena Blavatsky. According to Theosophical teachings, Mahatmas are spiritually enlightened beings who have evolved beyond the normal human condition. Early UFO religions reinterpreted this idea within a UFO framework. For example, the founder of the Aetherius Society, George King, seems to have been influenced by the Theosophical idea of Masters of Wisdom when he introduced the idea of extraterrestrials called cosmic masters. But while the Theosophical Mahatmas are traditionally thought to reside in Tibet, the spiritually enlightened aliens of UFO religions reside on another planet or in a different dimension. Since scholars started studying UFO religions in the mid-20th century, they started to notice several major themes shared among many of them. First of all, they share a stance toward religion that mingles the spiritual and the scientific. They view religious beliefs, experiences, mythologies, and texts as explainable by science and technology. A good example would be how some UFO believers interpret the chariot vision in the book of Ezekiel as a spacecraft. Ezekiel chapter 1 says that the prophet saw a great cloud with brightness around it, and fire flashing forth continually. And in the middle of the fire, something like gleaming amber. In the middle of it was something like 4 living creatures. This was their appearance. They were of human form with 4 faces, 4 wings, and sparkling like bronze. Some ufologists interpret this vision as Ezekiel witnessing aliens emerging from a spacecraft, and this is his attempt at describing the encounter with the language and metaphors available to him as an ancient Israelite. The cloud of brightness is some sort of energy field, the flashing fire some sort of retro rockets, and the 4-faced creatures the aliens themselves. Now, the scholar of Jewish studies David Halperin says that the flying object of Ezekiel chapter 1 was by no means an unidentified flying object. It was very much identifiable to any ancient Israelite reading this text. It's the chariot of God, a fiery vehicle befitting a divine king, and the strange creatures are one of several hybrid divine beings mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. But from the framework of UFO religions, the vision requires a technological explanation, and not a supernatural one. Some scholars call this attitude taking a physicalist perspective, meaning that all things are physical. Now, this framework doesn't necessarily mean aligns with science. In fact, many beliefs found in UFO religions are at odds with the findings of modern scientists. Rather, we're talking about a mode of religiosity that interprets religious ideas, texts, and experiences through a lens that assumes everything can be explained by science and tech, even if that technology itself is speculative or draws from science fiction. Another major theme seen in many UFO religions is millennialism, a belief commonly found in apocalyptic worldviews that anticipates a future golden age or paradise, a mass salvation event sometimes in tandem with a mass extinction event. In the case of UFO religions, millennialism might look like a golden age being ushered in by the benevolent guidance of an advanced alien species. For example, let's return to the Etheria Society. The founder, George King, claimed to have been contacted by extraterrestrial beings called the Cosmic Masters, and he believed these beings have visited Earth throughout history to warn humanity that an apocalypse is coming if humanity does not turn from its self-destructive ways. Because humanity is aggressive and spiritually immature, we threaten not only our own self-destruction, but the destruction of other alien civilizations. And members of the Etheria Society view themselves as builders of the new age, working to bring about a paradisal future. This millennialism is a direct result of the Cold War. Apocalyptic movements often emerge during times of social and political anxiety, and there are few periods in history more associated with fear and anxiety than the Cold War. Fears about nuclear annihilation led people to yearn for intervention from a powerful, morally superior third party, in this case, an extraterrestrial third party. Another theme we see in UFO religions is mixing elements with pop culture, which some scholars call hyper-real religiosity. UFO religions often draw inspiration from science fiction media such as The X-Files, Star Trek, and Ancient Aliens, blurring the lines between religion and entertainment. The influence goes both ways, too, when religious ideology makes its way into science fiction and then makes its way back into UFO religions. A good example is the 1951 movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. Truly an artifact of the Cold War, born out of anxiety around nukes. A Jesus Christ-like alien called Klaatu comes to Earth and issues a stark warning to humanity: live in peace or face judgment.
And the threat of aggression by any group, anywhere, can no longer be tolerated.
Media like this helped to solidify the idea among UFO religions called the sacralization of the extraterrestrial. In other words, the notion that aliens are not only technologically advanced, but also ethically and spiritually advanced, and can intervene in humanity to guide us to a better future. Now, there's one UFO religion, arguably the most famous UFO religion, that I haven't mentioned yet: Heaven's Gate. The group achieved international notoriety in 1997 when 39 members were found dead in a mansion near San Diego, the result of a ritualized mass suicide. Founded in the 1970s, Heaven's Gate combined elements of Christianity, particularly ideas of salvation and the apocalypse, with New Age spirituality and belief in extraterrestrials and UFOs. The group believed that they needed to travel aboard a UFO to the next level, a physical place in outer space populated by extraterrestrial beings. By participating in the Heaven's Gate movement, members believed that they could transform into these next-level beings. By 1997, the group dwindled to only a few dozen members, as hundreds left the group. At the same time, the arrival of a huge comet called Hale-Bopp Comet captured the world's attention. For months, it was easily visible in the night sky, even in light-polluted cities. The remaining members of Heaven's Gate believed that the arrival of Comet Hale-Bopp was the signal that they had been waiting for, indicating that it was time for them to leave Earth. And on the comet's closest approach, on March 22nd, the group began their ritual suicides. This event and the media storm following it left an indelible mark on the public's perception of UFO religions, reinforcing negative stereotypes beyond the notion that they're silly or weird, but specifically dangerous and manipulative. Now, there have been several extreme, violent examples of new religious movements like this, but the leading scholar of Heaven's Gate, Ben Zeller, argues that while these groups should be studied and should be understood, we shouldn't let these extreme examples derail the serious academic study of UFO religions as a whole. In other words, we shouldn't overlook UFO religions because they seem fringe. In the Handbook of UFO Religions, Zeller argues that the study of them helps us to challenge the lines between so-called mainstream religion and so-called fringe religion. He writes, fundamentally, there's little reason for scholars to accept one set of non-empirical or supernatural claims as more valid than another, or more appropriate for study. Whether these claims involve the mysterious aerial phenomenon associated with the miracle of Fatima in 1917, when a crowd in Fatima, Portugal claims to have witnessed an apparition of the Virgin Mary in the sky, or the equally mysterious claims of people who say they've been abducted by aliens or have seen interstellar vehicles. Rather than labeling the former as an example of mainstream religion and the latter as fringe, Zeller argues that the fundamental mythology of UFO religions tracks with broader religious mythologies and reflect the same concerns that religious mythologies seek to explain. A key axiom in the study of religion is to render the familiar unfamiliar and the unfamiliar familiar. This means that religious studies invites us to challenge our preconceived notions about a well-known religion and examine them from a new perspective that we might otherwise have overlooked. And on the flip side, the study of religion should challenge our preconceived notions about a lesser-known religion that we might otherwise glamorize, demonize, or dismiss as fringe, bizarre, or dangerous. UFO religions are not a fundamentally different type of religion. They reflect the same sociological phenomena that we see in other religions, such as developing rituals, mythologies, and moral codes that support the formation and cohesion of tight-knit social groups. Like other religions, many UFO religions also coalesce around charismatic leaders who claim to have unique insight or direct communication with greater-than-human beings. And while for most religions, these greater-than-human beings are gods, spirits, ancestors, or divine beings of a supernatural nature, UFO religions propose the existence of advanced extraterrestrial life. By no means a fringe concept, but for members of UFO religions, these entities serve similar roles to gods or spirits or enlightened beings like bodhisattvas, acting as guides, teachers, or even saviors. In other words, the fact that UFO religions focus on powerful beings that visit humanity and care about humanity's future does not make them unique in the history of religion. As with all religions, UFO religions also emerge from an identifiable historical and political context. In this case, the Cold War, and humanity's response to advancements in science and technology that enabled a greater understanding and interest in life beyond Earth and space travel. It was during this time that we saw the USSR launch the first artificial satellite, Sputnik. Not long after, the US sent the first person to the moon in the iconic Apollo mission. This period was filled with challenges as scientists and engineers from both nations pushed the boundaries of technology. And if you're a fan of space travel technology like me, you can learn more about it with today's sponsor, Brilliant.org. Brilliant is an online learning platform that offers a bunch of courses on science, technology, engineering, and math. For example, check out their course on astrophysics, which dives into topics like star formations, supernovas, exoplanets, interstellar travel, and the fate of the universe. Or maybe you want to learn about how to get a rocket into orbit. Then check out their course on gravitational physics to learn about escape velocity and gravity wells. These are complicated topics. There's a reason why "it's not rocket science" has become a common idiom, because rocket science is really difficult. But Brilliant makes learning these topics fun and accessible with interactive quizzes and data visualization tools. They also break down concepts into easy-to-understand modules that guide you through the course. So if you've ever wondered about the mechanics behind rocket launches or any other STEM subject, you can try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days. Go to brilliant.org/religionforbreakfast to get a free trial, or click the link in the description below. The first 200 people will get 20% off their annual subscription. Again, that's brilliant.org/religionforbreakfast.